Hi again, this is Hobo Yeti, and still in Cortland, but wanted to share a few things with you about how I walk the Hobo Road and how I plan on doing the walk across America. And I've got 10 rules really that apply to, I mean, there are some other things that I go by that are just as important, maybe, but not as on a daily basis. So I've got 10 rules for walking across America. Um, and the first one, most important one, is do not walk at night. Um, when you're walking, you have a tendency to, like, you'll scope out something on Google Maps or something, and you'll be like, "Oh, this is a good spot," and then you get there and it's not, or for whatever reason, there's construction or something else is going on, and you have to walk further. And then you end up walking, and there's a canal or a ditch full of water on the right side or the left side, or uh, basically you end up walking at night because you're like, well, I didn't find the right spot. Um, the thing to do with that is if you get to that point, then you're going to need to stealth camp, and that is basically, um, set up camp as it's getting dark, and then set your alarm, get up before it gets light. As long as no lights are playing over your tent or whatever, then you've got a good place for, 10 hours or something like that. And it's not fun, but many of the days that you have are going to be like that. Sometimes you'll just come across an area that you don't have um, a place to set up, so you need to do a stealth camp. Um, Not ideal, but a good rule of thumb is do not walk at night. That's bad. Second rule is don't unpack your cart or your stuff and set up your tent until it's closer to, I would say, an hour at the most before sunset. The reason for this is that you may not. I remember setting up my tent. I got to a place in Florida, and I set up my tent, and I was like, "This is going to be great. This is nice." And then people started coming through with four wheelers, and that's uncomfortable. Um, and I don't like people know where I sleep, so this kind of guarantees that you're going to have, especially if it's closer to. I usually do it when I set up my tent. I usually wait until it's the twilight period, about a half hour, or exactly when the sun sets, and then you've got that half hour or 45 minutes after sunset. Um, Rule number three: if you're going to an area that doesn't really have any um, uh, like convenience stores or grocery stores or something like that, go ahead and load up. Especially if you're going into like more than 2 days of that, load up at the local store. Get some energy drinks, get some candy bars, stuff like that. Fuel, basically, that's going to help you push through that. Because there have been times when I've gone through something like that and came across a great, like, 0 day spot that you can have your tent up and nobody's going to notice, and you can just relax and whatever. But if you don't have any, if you're not loaded up on supplies, then it makes it so that you can't stay. You got to go. And sometimes you just need that 0 day. Number four is stay on state roads. I don't walk on the highway. That's illegal in a lot of places. Um, but state road is the way to go. Um, County roads or country roads, don't even try. I've encountered some really sketchy situations on those. Um, and they usually don't have a shoulder, and just not worth it, really. Number five is don't go too far into the bush. Stay inside of the road. Like, even though I've been here for a week or so, I'm still about 100 feet from the road. The further you go into the bush, the more chance you're going to be on somebody's property, or away from life-saving, in case you would need it, life-saving cars going by. That's always been my rule of thumb, anyway. Um, Number six, it's not really a rule, but it's something to remember, is that when people give you directions, they're always wrong. And it's always a lot further than um, they say. And so, always double check with Google Maps or whatever if you can. Number 7 is always be polite. This is super important. Always be polite and friendly. Hobos are targets. Transients are targets. They see you going through and you're like, okay, I could pin this murder on them. You know, so always be friendly, and that at least and let them know that you're journaling this online, that sort of thing. That's one of the reasons I have a sign on my cart for the Walk Across America. Kind of gives me a little bit of prestige. It's also a way for people, like, if cops stop me, I say, yeah, I've got a blog and everything, and they're like, okay, so this homeless guy is not going to settle down in our town, right? So we'll wish him well and whatever and stuff like that. Let's see, number 8. If it's going to rain all day, just do a 0. Don't try to get out of it, even though you may be like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Don't do it. The reason is your gear is going to get all wet, your shoes are going to get all wet, even if you have a poncho and everything. Or rain gear, everything's going to get moldy, soggy, and it takes some time. And then set it, like, let's say you're setting up your tent in the rain. Like, I can set up this tent in less than 3 minutes, but that's 3 minutes of a constant downpour. Everything gets wet. Your blankets get wet. Everything gets wet, and it's just not worth it. Just call it a 0 day, or call it 0 days. Take a couple of days if you can. Oh yeah, always, number 9. Always charge your devices. Keep them charged. So if you come across an outlet, like sometimes there's like pavilions and stuff, like camping and whatever, or maybe stop at a library, or there's an outlet at a convenience store or something. I always usually ask them if I can, but I'll charge my devices. I actually have solar panels, 2 sets of them. One of them's kind of sucky, one of them's really good, and as long as I have a lot of sunlight, I can charge them as I'm walking, so that works for me. But like in a case like here where I'm kind of like not doing anything, I always try to set them out, even if they charge 20% of the battery that I have them hooked up to. It's worth it, because you always want to make sure that you have a connection, right? So that if you need to reach out to someone, you need to call the police or something, you can do it. And 10 is another important one. 1 and 10. The others are they're important, but maybe not as important. But 10 is trust your instincts, especially around people. You got to trust your instincts. Trust your feeling about is this person, how much information you can give people. People aren't always trustworthy. Even cops. I've encountered cops, that just kind of give you that weird bad feeling, and so when you encounter that, and that goes for a camping spot. If you scope out a camping spot and you just don't feel right about it, sometimes you'll be forced to camp there anyway. But it's a good idea to trust your instincts, because on the road they mean everything. But that's my 10 rules of the road and 10 things I go by on a daily basis. That's all I got. Hobo Yeti signing off.